everyone. Welcome to the Checkable Health Podcast. I am your host, Patty Post, founder and CEO of Checkable. Today, we are talking about a really sensitive topic for many, and it shouldn't be, and that is menstruating as a young woman to menstruating into womanhood and into your menopause years, but a product that I think is absolutely brilliant to cover so many women's problems with inserting a tampon. It's uncomfortable. It's a lot of us don't know how to do it, especially if you're new to menstruating. And Harit and Simone have come up with a solution for this with their company, Marlow. Harit and Simone, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having us. It's a pleasure.
So I found Marlow just at the Founder Made conference, and we were so excited about your product. You gave me the product, and I gave it to Lily, who is 12, and I'm being really sorry, Lily, but she's not menstruating yet, so she has a lot of curiosity about this. And what is Marlow, and who are you serving? Who are you helping?
Marlow is a one-stop shop for menstrual health is what we're trying to build, and early on we experienced a lot of pain inserting traditional tampons, and we learned that we weren't alone. We went to the gynecologist, and a doctor told us to spit on our tampon to make it easier to insert, and that shock factor blew us away. We thought there must be a better way, and that's what inspired us to develop our first flagship product, which is a lubricant designed to make inserting tampons easier and just so much smoother. So personally now I love to use it when I have a lighter flow on the last days of my cycle. So that's when I use it, but our team all uses the product differently. And really we're on a mission to make sure that no woman's pain is ignored or dismissed, and that menstruators have lots of choices and options that work for their bodies.
Mm-hmm. Such a nice way. You have really done well with your refinement of what you are doing. That just sounded absolutely perfect. So how it comes is in a plastic vial. I called it as vial, a container, and there's lube inside of it, and then you can insert your tampon and then remove it. And then it has lubricant on it, so when you insert it, it's not this painful, awful situation. How many women in your surveying, can you give us some stats of how many women, we a lot of times don't talk about these things. Is this pretty common?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. We did a survey in our community, and about 86% of respondents said that they had felt discomfort using a tampon. And that's a crazy statistic because I think we're just told to put up with it. Like, I even remember when I first started using a tampon, it's like, it's supposed to be painful. Like, just sort of, put up with it. But it doesn't have to be like that. So 86% of people have had discomfort using a tampon. And moreover, 1 in 3 women experience vaginal dryness. So there's a use case for the product there as well. So this is a big need. And again, I think when it comes to menstruation, we're sort of the narrative that's painted as it's supposed to be painful, it's supposed to be uncomfortable, just sort of suck it up. And through Marlow, we're trying to change that narrative to making sure that there's products and education available that make this uncomfortable time of the month a bit more comfortable.
It doesn't have to be uncomfortable. We're used to living with it. And so generationally, we say, it's fine, I had to do it. You should have to put up with it too. And I love that you're breaking that mold for young women, as well as adult women that are moving from even just vaginal dryness in general. It doesn't matter if you're in menopause or if you're 29, you still can experience it.
Exactly.
So tell me about when you had introduced Marlow, Simone, you said period products. So you have, this is really your hero product that you launched with. What's your vision for this product? How are you going to help us women?
Yeah, we learned that our community mixes and matches tons of different products. So really what we want to be is options. So the more options, the better, and then people can make choices for whatever works for their body. And so we have lots of products in the pipeline that we haven't announced yet, but stay tuned to really provide those options, and each product we launch, we're adding a layer of innovation to really just push up the space and sort of the standards that are expected, whether that's sustainability or comfort or convenience. And so we're really focused on leveling up each product that's out there. And our core philosophy as well that drives that product innovation is really co-building with our community. So far, the space has been very sort of segmented of people from big corporations and boardrooms doing focus groups and making big product development decisions that feel really disconnected from a lot of the users. And so we have a community of over 50,000 on TikTok that we turn to and ask them, where are the gaps and what are the needs that you're looking to fill? And then we use that as inspiration to co-create with them.
Well, how you just have that right into your customer base. You can just get their feedback. That's really unique for a brand to have that, especially such a young emerging brand. So you're actively, I see that you're in your TikToks too. Like, you're the creators.
Yeah.
That's absolutely awesome. So I have Lily on your on TikTok. There's so much approachable information. Let's now turn the conversation to, okay, I'm a mom and I wasn't talked about this menstruating with my daughter, or even the use of personal care products. How do you like spearhead the conversation, and what do you talk about? What are you getting from your community on that? You put a lot of information on TikTok about that.
This is such a common question, and we're about to launch actually in September 2023 a first period kit, sort of a 101 rundown, and there's a lot of helpful information in there. But I think one of the big things is not making a one-time conversation. I think sort of a lot of parents are like, I'm going to have the talk, and that's the approach, but then that puts so much pressure on yourself to sort of nail it, and all other areas of health is just sort of dropped into daily life, right? You talk about diet as you're cooking food, and you talk about exercise as you're exercising. And so one big tip that we always have for parents is don't make it one big talk, the talk. Try and just drop it into daily stuff, and then it feels so much more approachable and takes the pressure off yourself a little bit. What else would you add?
There's also a lot of our community members on TikTok who are on the younger side, and they don't know how to approach their parents. So it's, if the parents are uncomfortable talking about the topics, the kids are also like, I want to ask my mom or my dad, but I don't know how, and that's the feedback that we heard a lot. So we made a specific landing page. It was like, if you don't want to talk to your mom, let us do the talking. Simply send this link to your mom or your dad, and it sort of lays out what the product is, what the process is, a period 101 sort of guide. So that's another way that we're trying to facilitate that conversation.
So the Marlow was sitting on our kitchen counter when I got home from the show. And my husband came home like the next day because we had gone out of town, came back. I don't know. It was sitting on the counter, not opened yet. And he's like, what is this? Why do you have this at home? I'm like, just settle down. Like, it's not. He like thought that it was something for intercourse rather than helping with menstruation. He's like, oh, okay, well, I don't want to talk about that. I'm like, no, but really it's something that half of the population is what we deal with, and it's not a dirty conversation. There's nothing bad, like, we all go through it. And when you're, as two women in a raising money, we talked about this on the last podcast, but I'm curious how you suggest to breach this conversation with men, and do they end up sort of like coming to a realization that, oh, it's not uncomfortable to talk about?
Yeah, I'll be the first to say that this was definitely a topic that I wouldn't have talked about 2 years ago with my dad or with my boyfriends, etc. And I mean, now I am comfortable talking about it. So there's this weird desensitization that happens when you just routinely do bring it up. And so obviously this is a pretty extreme example because it's what I do for a living. So I talk about it all the time. But that being said, we were never the extreme people who were super comfortable from the get-go to say that the more you talk about it, the more normal it becomes. And talking about it with men, we are just pretty point blank about it, pretty direct. When we were raising, we used a lot of analogies. So, for example, like, how uncomfortable is it to put in dry contact lenses without contact solution? Just something to help them sort of understand that's relatable to them. And then just reminding men, like you said 2 minutes ago, that 51% of the population menstruates 1 week of every month for 51 years of their life. Like, it's just so common. And it's part of our overall health and wellness, right? Everything's connected. So what you eat affects your cycle, and then what in your body and your mental health. And there's PMS symptoms that are going to affect how you feel and your moods. And so it's just, it can't be siloed because it's so interconnected.
And a lot of our investors actually ended up being men for the pre-seed, and even the seed round we have a good majority of men. And a lot of times they're like, okay, I understand scientifically and through stats where you're coming from. Obviously, I personally can't relate. And they're like, let me go back and talk to my wife or my daughter. And they would then come back and be like, okay, I talked to them, and now, like, in addition to what you had presented to me, now I also have this personal anecdote. So that was sort of like what we noticed as well with a lot of men, that they're like, oh, I'll go talk to my wife about it.
Well, that's why the three of us, we need to exit our company so then we have money, so then we can be the investors, because there does need to be more women. That's not for this podcast, but just in general, there needs to be more women at the table of venture for business development and big strategics, as well as venture angel investors, because women's health is not going to improve if we don't bring the problems to a head to say we can do something better. And that's what the two of you have done. It's just incredible. You're so brave.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I know that if you have wealth, that then you will use it for good and to do good and improve women's health. And that goes for, I love what you said there was, Simone, with the one big conversation. Okay, you're like the birds and the bees. Here we go. It's like, no, we should be talking about it like when you're refilling your tampons in the car or you put them into your purse. Like, we do that. And I feel like I just do it without thinking because I know that I want to have backup and it's how I plan. But I should be talking about that with Lily. It shouldn't be the one conversation. I was also thinking about, over the weekend, I had broken 2 of my nails, and I had a pitch with an investor on Tuesday. And then I got my period at the same time. So I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I'm getting my period. I have like zits on my face. My nails are broken. And I was thinking, what all that we do as women, like, to maintain who we are. And that's not even talking about the business side of things. That's just presenting ourselves and showing up the way that we want to show up. Do you ever think about that?
Yeah, it's like an added layer of things that we need to achieve. It's like, it's not, the baseline is a bit higher, you know? You need to be doing A, B, C, D, but also come in looking presentable, and your mannerisms need to be a certain way. And of course, you don't think about them maybe at the forefront 24/7, but it's so subconsciously ingrained into our minds that it shows up as little stressors here and there, that where you're not even thinking about, like, consciously about the outfit or how you're presenting yourself. It's so subconsciously drained into us that we just can't escape it.
We can't.
We can't, yeah.
And then I think, and we're trying, and we should try.
Yeah.
I was saying to my husband, I can't just like show up at work like rolling out of bed. Like, I just can't. That's just what I would feel, just awful. And thinking about, like, taking this back to Marlow, when I was thinking about this, of if you have a tampon as your personal protection against, I don't know, what do we call it? Or what are pads and tampons? What do we call them in personal care?
Yeah.
Like menstruation supplies? Yeah. That if you had a hard time with inserting, that actually will help if you have your tampon in too long, it's toxic shock. You're putting yourself at risk for toxic shock, right? And it's a real thing. And that's when I talked to Lily about tampons, I'm like, this is a real thing. You can't have it in for too long. But if you experience pain, you're unlikely to be like, oh, I'm gonna get a new one, because you're just not gonna want to, even if you're feeling uncomfortable. So having your product, I'm looking at like the risk factor, that's even a piece there, that just to have one in your purse, in your backpack, at home, have it as everywhere that you can be.
Exactly. Yeah. Like you mentioned, I think TSS and sort of education around that is so important, that if you don't carry an extra one in your purse and you already had one in for 8 hours, like that's a hard decision. Should I just take it out and go home and change? Or so it's important to sort of always, carry those products around wherever you need them.
And we're working with workplaces as well to make the product more accessible. And so what a better way to sort of actively show that you're supporting your menstruating workforce than to have products, right? We have toilet paper stocked in bathrooms, and it's the same necessity product that you have to use. And so a huge amount of people will have to leave work early if they don't do the pre-planning that you talked about, Patty, because they're left open-handed or empty-handed. And so we're working with workplaces as well to get those stocked so that people don't just have to press pause or have it as sort of an extra step in their day.
And if you're a mom of a teenager, and then get your product. If you're even, I think of health teacher, this should be something that's in the curriculum of the menstruating products. Like it should just be, that should be table stakes. Like, hey, we've got this new product out there that helps. Like, let's get this into our conversation in the schools. And I think that would be huge.
Yeah, and we're slowly working towards that. We've reached out to a couple of schools in Canada locally, and we've done some workshops, like Period 101 workshops at high schools and universities, but sort of bringing that into the curriculum and making this available as an option when, the teacher's first talking about periods and period products.
And making it information that goes to both girls and boys, right, or whoever's interested. Because if we start teaching only to the young girls, then no wonder your husband is uncomfortable talking about it, because he never learned and didn't really have anywhere to turn to learn, even if he did want to share with Lily or answer her questions. So that'll be a slow sort of change in our cultural fabric, but slowly we're also trying to think about that. We haven't totally figured it out, to be completely honest, but we do want to spark more of those conversations with men as well.
And at the same time, I feel like it's part of womanhood. Like that's what it binds us together, is like, and we should remember that actually when we are approaching women, and a woman could come off in a certain way that you're like, oh wow. Like, just think of maybe you had that attitude last week because you didn't feel great. Like, you spent 4 days feeling like crap. I just talked about it in another podcast where I had hormonal changes from perimenopause that was dropping my progesterone so low that I was horrible for a couple of days a month. And I'm sure I was not the best person to be around, but I couldn't help my body, what my body was doing. It wasn't just like my brain playing tricks on me. And that's what healthcare was telling me was, well, your blood work says that your progesterone is dropping, but that's just normal. I'm like, no, that's not normal to feel like this, right?
Yeah, and then having awareness of that is just the biggest first step, and then talking about it. That's, I guess, the two things that you can do.
So any moms out there, or even any grandmas, aunts, like if you have young girls around you, it's okay to talk about it. Talk about what you're going through as a woman, what we go through as women, and in just as normal conversation. I love how you said that. And it's not, we want to be like our kids hit the lottery then, right? Like they get to talk about this and make it normal, and they don't have to feel like it's a taboo topic. And wearing a tampon is great, but not inserting it all the time. So that's where Marlow comes in, right?
Exactly.
So let's talk about, how do we find you?
You can find us on Instagram at Marlow, and our DMs are always open. All of our blogs are recommended by our community, so if you have any questions that you're curious about, please feel free to DM us, or we answer so many messages about how to insert a tampon or how to talk to your kids about periods, so we're always very responsive on there. And then you can find us on TikTok at We Are Marlow. We have lots of short, digestible little videos that are educational, have a bit of humor in them as well, so they're educational. And then we've got a blog on www.wearemarlow.com.
Awesome. So much free content that really helps you grow and be more comfortable with it. So thank you for doing that for the rest of us that are a little challenged in that area. It helps.
Thank you. Yeah, we're always open to feedback as well, so always looking for inspiration.
Well, Harit and Simone, thank you so much for joining me today. Really, really appreciate it. Let's stop making menstruating a taboo topic, and let's have the insertion of tampons be pain-free.
I like that.
With Marlow.
I love it.
All right, everyone. On Checkable,
Patty.
you are so welcome. Checkable Health, all of you guests, thank you so much for joining us for another great episode. If you like this episode, please give us 5 stars. Write us a review. That would just be so wonderful. And if you would like to have any topics covered, please send me a DM. On LinkedIn, I'm Patty Post, or you can go to Checkable Health, our Instagram page, and on TikTok as well. And with that, stay healthy for all of you moms out there that are taking care of your families, because we all know that we are the chief medical officers of ourselves and our families. See you till next time.